welcome to the Redox Connection, where we talk about our extraordinary bodies and how to take care of our overall wellness. Today's topic is one dear to every woman, because truth is, sooner or later, we all go through that phase, which is called menopause. To discuss this topic, we've got our expert in-house, Dr. Ray Dixon, chiropractor, naturopath with more than 40 years of experience in the field and one of the world's first redox educators. So welcome, Dr. Ray, and thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Let's dive straight in the topic. First of all, let's get it clear. What is menopause? What are the symptoms and what are the stages?
Well, menopause, to be blunt and put straight to the point, is when the ovaries shut down. So perhaps let's go to when the ovaries fire up, and that's at menarche. That's called the menarche. So in your puberty, when the ovaries awaken, which by the way is under the influence of hypothalamic and pituitary hormones up in the brain, and they awaken the ovaries. And then they're designed to undergo a cycle every month. And that cycle, of course, is where a primary oocyte, which is a primary egg, you might say, undergoes changes. And in the development of the follicle, where the primary oocyte is advancing, you might say, in preparation for ovulation, there's a whole bunch of other cells that form within the cycle, within that follicle. And those cells produce hormones. And of course, the hormones women are most familiar with, which are produced by these cells, are estrogen and progesterone. And obviously they have quite considerable cycles of their own as to when they dominate in the approximate 4-week cycle. I remind everyone, approximate. You know, it can be 21 to 32 days. I mean, the cycle can be very different, but the average is around that 28 days. So throughout that cycle, under the influence of hypothalamic pituitary hormones, the follicle develops, cells within the follicle develop, and they produce estrogens and progesterones to varying degrees at varying times of the month. I won't go into the subtleties of that now. Those hormones are what bring the changes to a female at puberty, the obvious changes that all women are aware of. Well, what happens when those hormones stop being produced? Well, that's menopause. So the women typically will go through that monthly cycle. The average approximate number is 400 in a lifetime, and you will be going through those normal changes, be it premenstrual, be it menstrual, and obviously getting the effects of the progesterones and the estrogens at varying times of the month in different ways. Now, menopause is actually, very rarely will the ovaries just shut down. I mean, if they're removed, they've shut down because you don't have them anymore. So if you have a radical hysterectomy and you lose your ovaries, well, you're on instant menopause because you've literally taken away those hormones completely because they're made in the ovaries. Predominantly. I'll elaborate on that shortly. But other than that, most women do not just have a shutdown of the ovaries. It's usually a phase down, and that in itself has a name. I mean, so perhaps let's give the definition first of menopause, and that's no period for 12 months. Now, definitions are never clear-cut. I mean, a definition can be clear-cut, but life's not always. Okay, so the definition is no period for 12 months. That's the definition of menopause. But most women don't just stop. They might miss a period, they might miss 2 periods, and then they might have another period. And then they might have more frequent periods, actually, not less frequent. So the transition into menopause varies a lot with women. And the transition in can take quite some years. And that in itself has a name called perimenopause. So It's only definitionally called menopause when you've had no period for 12 months. But most women know when they're changing for lots of reasons, not just menstrual reasons. Their skin, vaginal dryness can begin. There can be a whole bunch of different changes, subtle and some not so subtle. When the hormones reach a certain level of shutting down, that's when the hot flushes will come, which is the bane of many women and their husbands and partners, because obviously it's distressing for the lady, and often they're asking their partners, is it hot or is it just me? This happens all. And in fact, I have it now with my wife to some extent. So it's the amount of symptoms, because you asked about signs and symptoms, they're the major ones, but some can have some pretty dramatic effects. No two people are exactly alike. And some women have terrible effects when the estrogen level shut down and drop. Some women have very subtle and minor effects. So there is a great spectrum in here. Mental and emotionally, it can affect women differently as well. So that spectrum, I've seen people just go into absolute depression from the changes of menopause. So there's really quite a spectrum. Of course, most are in the middle of that spectrum, and then there's peripherals, which can be extreme, either extreme in effect or extreme in non-effect. Remember, there's also women that go into menopause with minimal distress or symptoms at all. Now, I must say I haven't met many. I have met some. I think you're a little bit that way, Liana. And I've had some in my practice life where it was just a non-event for them, the period to stop. But I must say they were not the average. They were very much in the minority. And a good question to ask at that point would be, why is that? There's a lot of reasons that are considered responsible for that. There is a hormone in the adrenal cortex called DHEA. They abbreviate it for obvious reasons because it's dehydroepiandrosterone. It's a big long name. So DHEA becomes the abbreviation. And that's an interesting adrenal cortex, because that's not your ovaries now. That's the adrenal gland sitting on top of the kidneys. And they make the DHEA. And that hormone, ironically, can be itself converted into estrogens or even testosterone, which is the male hormone. So there is a distinct relationship between hormones. It's not as black and white as female-male. DHEA can give rise to both. So it's considered that some women who have well-functioning adrenal glands will produce adequate amounts of DHEA to compensate for the crashing, if you like, of the ovarian hormones, and therefore minimal symptoms. But factor in what will distress the adrenal glands the most. Well, we all know of adrenal glands, adrenal and noradrenal. The adrenal glands very much help you with your stress tolerance and to cope with stress. So what if you've got adrenal exhaustion or adrenal depletion because you've been not getting enough sleep, way too stressed, anxious, worried, fearful? Well, your adrenal glands are not going to be functioning well either. You're going to be having a degree of burnout. Well, that can affect the DHEA and therefore the degree of menopause.
Wow, beautiful. That was so insightful, and also understanding how everything is collegato in Italian, how everything is attached, so our body works together in different systems for that well-being, right? Now, this brings me to the next question. So, okay, for those that are going through, that are transitioning in this period in their lives, what advice would you give to support them?
Well, there's the background picture before you get there, and then there's the picture when you get there based on what exactly is happening to you. The background picture before you get there, as always, guys, this will pertain to any issue in life. It doesn't matter whether it's menopause or any other issue that might come your way regarding health issues. Diet's important, sleep is important, Adequate hydration is important. People often do not drink enough water. Don't underestimate the power of these things. You must get enough sleep, 6 minimum hours. It should be 7 to 8. You know, don't neglect that. Manage your stress levels. If you get too anxious, do some yoga, do some meditation or Tai Chi. Do what will work for you, because we all have different interests when it comes to what we like to do to relax. But remember, life needs balance. So if you're not getting that counterbalance to your focused, stressful life, you're going to have a more likely problematic menopause. So that's the big picture before you get there. There are what they call phytoestrogens, and phyto just means plant, and estrogens means obviously plant-based estrogen-effect substances. Now, they are nowhere near as powerful as the hormones you make in your ovaries, nowhere near as powerful, but they do matter. And, you know, soya, for example, and alfalfa sprouts contain phytoestrogens naturally. So they will help you in transitioning into the menopausal time. A number of herbs have phytoestrogens and therefore are used also to help people suffering from menopause, like red clover, wild yam. We can look these up on the internet. They're quite easy to find. You know, dong quai is a master hormone that's considered a great regulator of the female hormone balance, as much as it can be balanced. Remember, because as you move into menopause, you're moving into a different homeostatic position. Homeostasis means balance. So the thing that females have that males don't is they do have these major changes in hormones, as opposed to males. Males kind of just ramp up testosterone at puberty, and it just carries on its merry way through life, obviously affected by some conditions, and then it just gradually winds down into old age. It's not the same for women. They have these much more major changes in hormones and times of their life.
That's what makes us so extraordinary and fascinating. This brings me then to the next question, because you mentioned it, homeostasis, balance. What role do the redox signaling molecules have in this transition? Or how can they actually support this transition?
Well, there's two sides to answer that. The first side is, remember, all cells run on redox molecules. So it doesn't matter if it's any cell at any age, from birth, all cells run on redox signaling molecules. They control the DNA, the genome, and all hormones are made by cells. All neurotransmitters are made by cells. So redox is necessary in balance, the right numbers and the right balance between reductants and oxidants to maximize your making of hormones in the first place, and therefore you're healthy. In terms of as you wind down into menopause, well, remember, we're all losing the ability to make peak efficiency of redox molecules from puberty. So we're going down at 1% per year on average of trillions of molecules necessary for healthy cells that make your hormones as well. So if you're not using redox signaling molecules anyway, and you are entering menopause, you get a huge benefit, because they won't just go to work on cells that help to make DHEA, for example, in your adrenal cortex. You know, they will, in some instances, resurrect your ovaries a little bit as well. Remember, I said that wind down process into menopause is not black and white. It's anywhere from 45 to 55 on average. Some people can enter menopause in their 60s. They haven't even begun. Some can enter it in their 20s. So there is a massive, massive difference. So any undertaking of a redox signaling supplement like ASEA, you will soon notice that, whoa, I'm sleeping better, I'm feeling better, I have more energy. Oh, and I got a period this month I haven't had for 3 months. You're going to see that too, because some of those follicular cycles begin again. So therefore, you're going to get back the estrogens and progesterones that you were losing before. So that may well happen as well. If it doesn't happen, the cells you still have will be healthier, including the adrenal ones I mentioned before, which in turn is going to help you with your menopausal symptoms. What about balancing of neurotransmitters from redox? Well, that's going to help you feel better, whether it's serotonin or dopamine or whatever other, oxytocin. They're not coming from the ovaries, they're coming elsewhere. So cells will help you resurrect when you're taking the ASEA liquid supplement of redox molecules. So therefore, you're going to get all manner of benefits from using ASEA, redox. Even the gel form can be targeted. You can use that over the ovaries, for example. But if you're suffering consequences elsewhere, doesn't matter where, you can apply the gel there too and get a benefit of the redox molecules, helping you to naturally cope with that winding down process of menopause.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I mean, this was so insightful. What we've also understand that as all the topics that we touch, way too little time to actually go in deeper. We will be having other conversations around this topic, but for the meantime, thank you so much, Dr. Ray, and thank you all for joining us in. And we look forward to hearing about your comments and any other topic that you would like to discuss. Just remember that healthy cells, healthy you, happy you. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.